On the suffocating night of August 21, 2026, as storms lashed the mountains of Hubei and the swollen Yangtze groaned under the weight of 30 days of monsoon rain, the Three Gorges Dam, once hailed as mankind's greatest fortress against nature, cracked under the pressure. And though alarms blared in the control rooms and engineers screamed into radios begging to evacuate the lowlands, the orders came too late, for in a single apocalyptic moment, the dam ruptured with a shattering roar that echoed for miles. And billions of tons of water, an ocean unchained, rushed into the darkness, a monstrous black wall devouring the valley. And the first to die were the villages nearest the gorge, their homes reduced to matchsticks, their people erased without a chance to cry out, and the wave, taller than skyscrapers, raced eastward with a velocity faster than a bullet train, obliterating everything in its path. In Yicheng, the flood hit at midnight, tearing through concrete apartment blocks as if they were paper lanterns, sweeping cars, buses and screaming families into the maelstrom. And though sirens wailed and church bells rang, there was no escape except the hills, where survivors huddled soaked and shivering, watching their city vanish beneath a boiling Black Sea, while farther east, in Wuhan, a metropolis of 10 million, the river rose with terrifying speed. Bursting through levees and swallowing entire districts, turning avenues into rivers of wreckage, filling subway tunnels in minutes, with trapped commuters banging on train windows until silence replaced the sound, and on the rooftops of high-rises whole families gathered, waving flashlights at circling helicopters, praying to be seen, their cries carried into the storm. But the air fleet was too small, too overwhelmed, and countless were left to perish as water climbed floor by floor. And still the flood rolled on, spreading across Anhui and Jiangsu like an endless tide, drowning farms, lifting locomotives from their rails, sweeping away temples older than dynasties, until even the great Nanjing Bridge groaned and collapsed, its mighty steel skeleton torn like a toy. In Shanghai, the delta became a nightmare as the surge met the East China Sea, overwhelming seawalls, crippling the port, and setting off tidal waves that sent container ships crashing into each other like children's blocks. And by dawn, satellites captured the impossible sight of half of central and eastern China, submerged, tens of millions displaced, millions more lost, and the government, stunned by a catastrophe beyond comprehension, declared martial law, mobilizing every soldier and boat in a desperate bid to rescue survivors. Yet chaos reigned, roads gone, power grids dead, communication towers drowned, and commanders on the ground cut off from Beijing's orders, forced to improvise with whatever remained. Soldiers turned fishing boats into rescue rafts, doctors stitched wounds under flashlight beams in flooded gyms, volunteers formed human chains to pull children from the current. But even as heroism blazed in the darkness, tragedy struck everywhere. Families torn apart in the stampede for higher ground, supply trucks overturned by mobs of starving refugees, rescue helicopters forced to choose which rooftop to save when thousands waved at once, knowing they could only lift a handful. Individual stories carved themselves into legend. An old school teacher in Wuhan, who tied 30 of her students together with rope and dragged them onto a half-submerged bus that became their ark. A father who strapped his infant daughter to his back and swam against the current until his heart failed, leaving her alive on the branch of a tree. A soldier named Zhang Wei, who abandoned orders to guard an armory and instead led a caravan of refugees through back roads to the mountains, saving hundreds, though branded a deserter. And an engineer, Liang Wei, who stayed in the drowning control station long enough to re-run. Power so hospitals could keep their lights burning a few more hours, dying as the flood consumed the facility. Hunger and sickness soon followed in the hills, where millions gathered in makeshift camps, cholera spreading through muddy streams, children crying for food, soldiers distributing rice, sacks that vanished in minutes, gangs forming in drowned cities to loot what was left, while drones filmed mountains of corpses piled in silence. Though no official broadcasts ever admitted the numbers, the truth buried under state propaganda. You. Whispers alone, carrying the real horror, that tens of millions had died in a single week. Yet even as despair thickened, pockets of resilience grew. Farmers planting rice in silt-rich soil where towns once stood, monks sheltering orphans in the western hills, engineers from across the nation rebuilding bridges out of salvaged steel, and whole communities rising on higher ground with names like Phoenix City and New Wuhan, forged from the ashes. Still, scars remained, physical and human alike, as children born after the flood grew up, surrounded by half-sunken skyscrapers jutting like tombstones from brown lakes, hearing tales from their elders of the night. The great dam fell when the earth itself seemed to break. When the river reclaimed its empire, when cities drowned but humanity clung on, scarred yet unyielding, survivors of a calamity greater than any war, carrying forward not the dam's concrete promise, but the unbreakable memory that even as half a nation went underwater, the people endured. And from that endurance rose a new beginning written in grief, sacrifice, and stubborn hope.